Ladies and gentlemen, all I can say is I guess it's about time, right? I know that I've been promising this video for a really, really long time, but there have just been circumstances kind of surrounding it where one thing leads to another, and I just every day that goes by I think about doing it, and then it ends up not getting done. But here it is, finally, better late than never, the Dean Ambrose FCW Superstar Spotlight. And there are a lot of reasons that I wanted to not do this guy first. This is one of those cases where this guy is so good that you want to save him for something big. And I figured what could possibly be bigger than the 1000th episode of Raw. So I'm going to put this video up so that it'll be up just in time for the 1000th episode. Let's talk about Dean Ambrose. This guy is absolutely amazing. As you all know, my Superstar Spotlights generally have 3 segments. Segment 1 is kind of a brief history of the guy I'm talking about. More emphasis on FCW because that is technically where they are from, according to WWE, of course. The second section is my analysis of the guy, their attributes, charisma, intensity, psychology, appearance, and technical. And one thing I will say is one of the reasons that I didn't get this out earlier is because my Photoshop is what I use to make all of my backgrounds, and it's what I used for the last 3 episodes of FCW Superstar Spotlight to do the little bars for the attributes that kind of fade from red to green. And my Photoshop is official, and I bought it in college, so it's not like it's pirated or anything, but it's on my other computer that died. And because it's on my other computer, I am not able to activate it on this computer, which means that I had it for, I think it was like a 90-day trial or 30-day trial or something like that. And now every time I go to activate it, it says you need to deactivate it on whatever other computer you have it on. But the problem is the computer that I have it on, that it is activated on, is dead. Like, it turns on, but the screen stays black. It is literally just done. So I can't deactivate my Photoshop on the other computer, which means that I can't activate it on this one. So, unfortunately, you're not going to get the nice little bars. I will put the attributes down in the description just for those of you that kind of like that visual more. So, obviously, those are the first 2 segments. The third segment is me booking the person into the WWE, and this time is going to be a little bit special because this time I'm going to do my personal fantasy booking, what I think Dean Ambrose deserves, and what I think the WWE can do with him as far as a gimmick and a character goes. But I'm also going to feature a more realistic look at his character and what I can realistically see the WWE doing. So this is going to be kind of like 4 segments. We're going to do the brief history, the attributes, but then instead of just a fantasy booking, I'm going to do my personal, like, ultimate fantasy booking of him and the WWE's more realistic booking of him. So let's start things off with a little bit of a history. Dean Ambrose debuted in 2004 for the HWA, the Heartland Wrestling Association. He kind of just traveled the indies, really, from that point until 2009, which was the year that he debuted in Dragon Gate USA and CZW. And he was really, honestly, he's really mostly known for his work in CZW. He's a former 2-time CZW World Heavyweight Champion. Really made his name in that federation. I personally am not a big fan of CZW, which is kind of one of the reasons why I hadn't really heard of Jon Moxley until his work in FCW, which I'll talk about now. He debuted in FCW calling out the current, at the time, back when he debuted, FCW 15 champion, which was Seth Rollins. He called out Rollins, and he basically said, Rollins can't beat me. I know I'm better than him. He got here earlier than me, but that doesn't make him better than me. And then he had a series of matches with Rollins that were all truly amazing. I would personally recommend you watch all of them, but if you don't necessarily feel like watching 2 guys wrestle each other over and over and over again, which, I mean, if you're in the WWE, you're watching WWE, you know that guys like Daniel Bryan and Punk can do it all night, every night, but I would definitely say that the best match was the 30-minute match. They had a 15-minute match, a 20-minute match, and a 30-minute match, and they all went by Iron Man rules. And from what I remember, I don't think either one of them actually won any of those matches. I think that the 30-minute match, Rollins might have won, but I know for a fact that the 15 and 20-minute matches ended in a draw. I think the 30-minute match did too, but it's been a while since I've watched it because it came out last year. But it was all great matches. Definitely the 30-minute match I know is on YouTube. It's like 38-minute video because of entrances and all the extracurricular stuff. But the match itself is great. Definitely check that out. CM Punk actually went out of his way. He went to FCW, and he went out of his way to go to FCW to wrestle Dean Ambrose. And they put on a 20-plus minute match. If you look on YouTube, you can find about 10 minutes of the match. It starts cut from the beginning. So what you're watching is really only about the second half of the match, but regardless, you get to see the finish, and it's a great match. I personally wish that the entire match would be on YouTube because I would love to see it, but regardless, they cut promos on each other, and Punk said after the match that basically he was that guy. When he was in OVW, he was the Ambrose where he would come out and call out the veterans, but nobody else had the balls to get in the ring with him like he just did with Ambrose. So just overall, really awesome stuff. It's 3 parts. The first part is the pre-match. The second part is that 10-minute chunk of the match, and the third part is the post-match, and it's all great. But after Punk showed up, Ambrose and William Regal got into a really great feud because anytime Regal was on commentary and Ambrose would compete, Regal would talk about how great he is and how he's such a villain and he relates to him, and they talked very, very briefly, and it was one of those things where they just kind of developed a feud, and it was organic. It felt awesome. And Regal cut this promo backstage talking about how a true villain, you can't hide it, and he's a true villain, and Ambrose has kind of reinvigorated him, and it's just all so great. Ambrose started playing mind games with Regal, using the Regal stretch to finish his opponents. He even wrestled a few dark matches before WWE Raws and SmackDowns, and he would use the knee trembler, which is where he pulled the knee pad down and cracked the guy with I don't really want to call it Shining Wizard, but that's basically what it was to a hunched over opponent. So yeah, Ambrose started using all of Regal's old finishers, the Regal stretch, the knee trembler, and he's trying to get into his head. He started cutting promos talking about how he's being ignored, and then it eventually came to Ambrose and Regal it was after a match was over. I don't remember what the match was exactly, but this moment was so memorable for me. They were both applying the Regal stretch to different guys in the middle of the ring, and Regal just got up and walked out. He let go of the Regal stretch. Ambrose still had it locked in on his guy, and Regal just let go and walked out. And then Ambrose went backstage and cut the most amazing promo that I think has ever been cut in FCW, where he talked about how Regal broke his heart, and that's pretty much what it's most known for. I think on YouTube it's called Ambrose's Broken Heart promo. He talks about how Regal broke his heart and how, the cops took his mom and the drugs took his dad, and that the feds came in and took his little sister or his little cousin, and about how she was the only shining light in his life, and that they took her away from him, and that he could have protected her. And it was just, I get goosebumps just thinking about it and talk about it. I do have a Dean Ambrose promo compilation up on this channel, but I am going to be moving it to my tribute channel. It's just called Eon Tributes, nothing special. I currently have a 4 Horsemen hype video on there and a Daniel Bryan tap out Titantron on there. But I'm going to add this on there pretty much as soon as this video is up. So definitely be sure to check that out. I will leave a link to that in an annotation right now and in the description. So check that out. But yes, amazing promo. That's pretty much what Ambrose is most well known for, but we'll talk about his attributes later. In their first match, Regal and Ambrose, Regal did defeat Ambrose, but the match itself was absolutely incredible. Regal used the ring to basically torture Ambrose. He separated his shoulder, and he pulled his arm through the turnbuckle pad and kneed it, and then he stuck his arm in between the steel steps in the corner of the ring, and he kicked the steel steps into it, and it was just brutal. And it's funny because there was no blood in this match, but it was literally the most violent match I've seen as far as WWE goes in years. Very good. Absolutely amazing. But then in their second match, which literally just aired within the last week or two, Ambrose busted Regal open. It was great because Regal was dominating Ambrose the whole match, and then Ambrose got his second win. He busted Regal open by basically kneeing the crap out of him into an exposed turnbuckle, and the ref had to stop the match. And when the ref stopped the match, Ambrose flipped out, started beating down refs, any kind of wrestler that came in that tried to help out, he beat the crap out of them. He got Regal in the Regal stretch for a few seconds, and this all while William Regal's left ear is bleeding profusely. And then he went into the corner, and Regal got up just long enough to give Ambrose a slow clap, and then Ambrose knocked him out with a knee trembler. Absolutely amazing. The feud itself was great, but it really, I hate to give all the credit to Ambrose because William Regal's amazing, but William Regal wouldn't have had somebody to play off of like he did if Ambrose wasn't as great as he is. Ambrose has not won any championships in FCW, so I usually kind of say, oh, this guy won a championship in FCW, so the WWE grass likes him. But he hasn't, and that doesn't mean the WWE grass doesn't like him, because CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, William Regal, and Jim Ross have all praised his work. CM Punk has called him their personal secret weapon, and he's got such a bright future. He's only 26 years old. 26 years old. John used to do a running joke about that with Cody Rhodes, but Cody's 27 now, so I guess Ambrose is the new 26-year-old in town. So that was a brief history on Dean Ambrose. Matches that I would recommend you watch versus Seth Rollins in the 30-minute Iron Man match, and both of his matches against William Regal, because those are the three that really stand out as, holy crap, the best of the best. Let's talk about some attributes. As you all know, I personally have 5 attributes that I think make up the best wrestlers: charisma, intensity, psychology, appearance, and in-ring technical ability. Dean Ambrose has, I believe, the highest cumulative score of anyone so far. I might be wrong. Obviously, I should probably check my own facts before I make these, but his charisma, I want so badly to give him a higher score because he's so intense, but the intensity thing is a separate attribute, so I gave him a 7.5 in charisma. I wanted to give him a 9 or a 10, but I gave him a 7.5 because, to me, charisma is when you talk, everybody listens. And as much as Ambrose has that, it's something that he can work on, because you can see him cutting promos in FCW in his earlier days, and he gets interrupted, and he gets whatted. So just one thing, and he has improved. Even since he was in FCW to start, he has improved on his charisma. But the 2 things that he really just shines are the next 2 attributes. Intensity being the first one, and I gave him a 10, a perfect 10 in intensity. You can look at any wrestler in the history of the business, and their intensity will either be just barely as good as or not even close to as good as Dean Ambrose. This guy is intense to a level that I don't think I've ever seen before. People say Mick Foley was intense, and don't get me wrong, he was. But to me, Dean Ambrose has more intensity than Mick Foley. And that, for me to say that, I'm a huge Foley fan, but for me to say that means a lot. Intensity, absolutely 100%, 10 out of 10. The most intense wrestler today, I'll say that, since Foley is retired. Ambrose is hands down the most intense wrestler today. I would say that maybe the 1 or 2 people that are even close to him would be Foley, and I don't even know if I can throw anybody else's name out there. So really, Foley's the only guy in his league as far as intensity goes in my eyes, and I do honestly think that Ambrose has more intensity than Foley. Next up, we have psychology. Again, I hate to give out random 10s, but this guy deserves it. Dean Ambrose, psychology, 10 out of 10, yet again. This isn't just me being a blind mark. This is me being objective and realizing this guy has absolutely incredible psychology. Today, there are very few people that, and by people, I don't even mean wrestlers, I mean fans, that fully appreciate the psychology of professional wrestling. And when you look at a guy like Daniel Bryan, people say, oh, he's a great technician, but they don't realize that he's also an absolutely incredible psychologist in the ring as well. Before Ambrose came along, I said that Edge was the greatest ring psychologist in the history of the sport. He has company in Dean Ambrose now, because this guy does everything right psychology-wise. Everything he does in that ring makes sense. He doesn't do the cutesy little tricky, flippy moves. That's honestly, to me, that's one of Seth Rollins' biggest weaknesses, is that he lacks in the psychology department. Ambrose doesn't. Ambrose is one of the few guys coming off the indie scene that truly understands the psychology of professional wrestling. He gets it. So, yeah, 2 10s, not only the first 10 in the history of this series, but also the second 10 in the history of the series. So, moving on to appearance, I'll be the first guy to admit that Ambrose doesn't have your typical look of a wrestler. He looks nothing like Triple H. Honestly, to me, the guy in FCW right now that has the best overall look is probably Chris Hero, aka Cassius Ohno. And believe me, he will be on this series eventually. But Ambrose doesn't have a typical wrestler look. But one thing he definitely does have going for him, unlike the much more, like, the guys that you see as super talented and incredible in the ring, and they can cut promos, but for some reason they aren't multiple-time champions, like the Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler and even Tyson Kidd and these different guys, the big thing that the WWE sees as holding them back is that they're short. Ambrose is 6'4". So to me, that's a huge step up in the appearance department compared to a Ziggler or a Bryan. And now I'm not trying to make them look worse because I absolutely love Dolph Ziggler. He's my favorite wrestler going today. Daniel Bryan, a very close second. CM Punk, a very close third. But the fact of the matter is, none of those guys are taller than like 6'1", which in the WWE's eyes, and mainly in this case in Vince McMahon and Triple H's eyes, is short. Dean Ambrose, like I said, 6'4". He's got the height. Ask Dolph Ziggler how important height is. He always says that that's the only thing Jack Swagger has going for him, and quite frankly, I find it difficult to disagree with him. But yes, Ambrose has the height. He is built very well. Honestly, I think he's probably built better than CM Punk is. He's got, more definition to him than Punk does. And I'm not saying Punk is out of shape by any means, but Triple H kind of gets on him for that, and I think that Ambrose is built better than Punk. He's taller than Punk, Bryan, Ziggler, the super amazing, talented guys that are on the roster right now. I'm going to give his appearance a 7.5. I was thinking about giving it a 7, but the more I think about it, the more I think that he does have some of the attributes that the WWE typically looks for. So I'm going to give him a 7.5 with the appearance. In-ring technical ability, the guy isn't, and I will repeat that, this guy is not a mat wrestler. He isn't going to chain wrestle you. He isn't going to go to the effort of locking in dozens of submissions. He isn't going to, kick your head in. He is going to beat the crap out of you. He is a brawler in its truest sense. He punches people. He clotheslines people. He throws lariats. This is basically, his in-ring style reminds me of JBL. And that's not a bad thing because JBL was a great in-ring physical brawling worker. And Ambrose brings that element. So I'm going to give his in-ring... And now let me specify here. When I say in-ring technical ability, I don't just mean does he use a lot of submissions, does he use a lot of flashy moves. When I say in-ring technical ability, I mean is he safe? Does he not injure people? That kind of stuff. Is he technically sound to the point that you can honestly say that you can put him in there with anyone and not risk anyone getting hurt? So to me, Dean Ambrose's in-ring technical ability, I'm going to give him an 8. I will say he could use some work, and in the eyes of the technical ring-working marks of the IWC, the people that only care about in-ring technical prowess, he isn't the best of the best. I'll give you that. He is not the number one best technical worker. He's probably not even the number one best technical worker in FCW because honestly, and just coming to mind immediately, Cassius Ohno is a better in-ring worker technically than Dean Ambrose. But Ambrose's psychology more than makes up for that because what he lacks for in the technical ability, he makes up for in the brawling ability, and that's where the psychology comes into play. So yes, Dean Ambrose, to give you a quick overview, charisma, 7.5. Intensity, 10. Psychology, 10. Appearance, 7.5. Technical, 8. That is a brief overview of his past and my personal analysis on some of his attributes. So now let's talk about fantasy booking. This is where I'm going to lose some people because this is where I drift off into Fantasyland and talk about what I would do to debut Ambrose and basically push him to the frickin' moon. I would have liked to have seen a few weeks of promos leading up to his debut. with him basically just brooding in a corner, with clips of John Cena, CM Punk, Sheamus, Christian, and Santino Marella, the 5 top guys, the 4 champions and Cena, bullying people. Show clips of Cena with John Laurinaitis and Michael Cole, and other clips of his feud with, say, like The Miz and Wade Barrett, and him bullying them. Show clips of Sheamus bullying with Christian and Bryan and Johnny Ace. Show some of Punk's clips where he was bullying Johnny and Michael Cole and Alberto Del Rio. Show Christian's clips of him bullying when at WrestleMania 7 he and Edge destroyed Alberto Del Rio's car. Show Santino Marella with him and Ricardo Rodriguez, with him just toying around with Ricardo and taking his shirt off and revealing the Justin Bieber shirt and all this stuff. Show these clips because I personally think that Dean Ambrose, to kind of put things into perspective, look at the WWE's Be a Star campaign, the ultimate anti-bullying campaign, and then look at how many of their top baby faces are just as big of bullies as the guys that they're trying to tell to not be. So to me, I think that the perfect gimmick for Ambrose coming into the WWE would be as somewhat of a bully exorcist, somebody that comes out and calls the babyface bullies out on their crap and really forces people to kind of think about what's actually going on when certain things happen. When Cena is toying with John Laurinaitis and pouring barbecue sauce all over him, and then the next thing you know, a commercial comes on that says, "Be a star, don't be a bully." There's hypocrisy in that, and I think that Ambrose would be the perfect character to kind of point that out and bring out the BS there. So I personally think that the number one thing that needs to happen with Dean Ambrose is he needs to win the United States Championship from Santino Marella in his debut. I think that's why Santino hasn't been defending the U.S. title, because they're waiting until the perfect moment to debut Ambrose to take that title off of him. Talk about hypocrites, talk about bullies, talk about how the fans cheer for the worst bullies in the company. As United States Champion, go after John Cena. Tout the title of, literally the title, the U.S. title, tout it as a symbol. Tout it as a symbol of the country that idolizes Cena. Ambrose is your United States Champion, but everyone knows that John Cena is the real United States idol, you could call it. Talk about how, Cena really made his name with the U.S. title. Talk about how he turned it into a spinner before he got to the WWE, how it was like a prototype for him. Talk about how it used to be his championship, now it's Ambrose's. Just like this used to be John Cena's company, and sooner than later, this will be Dean Ambrose's company. Talk about the differences between John Cena's America, which stands for hustle, loyalty, respect, the Marines, G.I. Joe, tribute to the troops, and the real America, which is really, crime, hypocrisy, bullying, really just emphasize all of the negatives about America. And with Cena, talk about the hypocrisy there. Talk about their pasts. Talk about how Ambrose grew up poor versus John Cena basically having the privileged upbringing with the boarding school and the college and all that stuff. Talk about not rising above hate, but Ambrose can come out and say, I'm never going to rise above hate because there's way too much in this world that's worth hating, but I'm still, like John Cena, never going to give up. You can't kill me. Look at Ambrose's one promo from the compilation that I have posted. He says, I'm indestructible. I can't get hurt. I don't get tired. I never stop. And you're going to find that out the hard way. I personally would have Ambrose's first match against Cena on the Raw following SummerSlam. And it would be a loss, but it would be by disqualification, because he would beat the living crap out of John Cena and refuse to answer a 5 count in the corner. So it doesn't really make either one of them look bad. It makes Ambrose look like he's extremely tough and like he can, in a real fight, beat John Cena. It doesn't make Cena look bad because maybe he catches him off guard or maybe he catches him with a low blow or something like that. You can protect them both there. Second match against John Cena would be at Night of Champions. Again, lost by DQ. Maybe he pulls out a chair and uses it in front of the ref. Just using these matches as opportunities to destroy Cena, but lose to him by disqualification because he's beating the crap out of Cena in illegal ways that protect both of them. Third match against Cena would be at Hell in a Cell. I do believe they're keeping that pay-per-view for October. It would be a clean loss, and Cena would win the U.S. title, and here's why. I would have Ambrose win that U.S. or lose the U.S. title to Cena for two reasons. First of all, it relegates Cena to the mid-card, which is something that tons of people have been begging for. And second of all, because it creates a struggle. It makes Ambrose have to continue chasing Cena, and it makes Ambrose have the potential to have that big moment where he wins the title back, and the only way you can win a title is cleanly. So I would have him lose the United States Championship to John Cena at Hell in a Cell. So Cena's the new U.S. champion, like I said, relegated to the mid-card. Let Punk and Orton have a chance to be the top guys in the company. Even Sheamus. I'm not a big fan of Sheamus, but a lot of people are. Okay, so after that, Ambrose cuts a promo saying that he knows he's getting to Cena because he saw something out of Cena at Hell in a Cell that he hasn't seen in 8 years. Tell him basically that Cena is starting to get desperate because he knows he can't beat Ambrose as this, never give up, rise above the hate, goody-goody, basically. So then their fourth match would be at Survivor Series. But here's the thing. Ambrose would win by disqualification. Cena would keep the title, but he would start basically slowly losing his sense of right and wrong. Ambrose would be corrupting him. Ambrose is corrupting Cena. And no, before you go there, this isn't my way of turning Cena heel. This is my way of making Ambrose look greater than anything in the frickin' world. So yeah, Cena would win by disqualification, whether it's due to a chair shot or a title shot. I would go with the title shot. Basically out of desperation. Have them put on a solid 15-20 minute match where Cena gets desperate and takes a shortcut. At TLC, I would have Ambrose just cleanly lose to Cena in a TLC match. It would give everyone their happy, Cena can still beat this guy moment. But then at the Royal Rumble, Ambrose eliminates Cena from the Royal Rumble match. This irritates the crap out of Cena. Cena gets angry and he goes after Ambrose this time because he wanted to get back in the WWE title picture and he needed this and Ambrose stopped him. So he goes after Ambrose, and at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, Dean Ambrose wins the United States title back from John Cena. Obviously, I would have him use some kind of dirty tactic while the ref was down or not looking or something like that, but Ambrose wins the U.S. title back. So what do we get out of this? We get I'm trying to think how long. He won at Hell in a Cell, so October. He loses at the Elimination Chamber in February. So we're looking at a 4-month John Cena United States title reign. And at WrestleMania, or what would be even better is at a Raw in between Chamber and Mania, Ambrose retains the U.S. title against Cena due to somebody interfering to cost Cena the match. That somebody would be Cena's WrestleMania opponent. Maybe Rock, maybe Brock, maybe Taker, you never know. But regardless, the point here is we have relegated Cena to the mid-card for a few months. We have built up a guy in Dean Ambrose who can carry this company. He's only 26. He'll be 27 by the end of the year, I believe. He can carry this company for years to come. He's got Mick Foley levels of talent, and he's in way better shape than Foley ever was. And here's a guy who now looks like he can beat the top guy in the company if he has to. He can take the top guy in the company to the limit every single time. And he's the United States champion going into WrestleMania, so hopefully they would put that title back on the pay-per-view, since I personally would assume that this would have been the best thing on TV for a while. So yes, that was my personal fantasy, kind of out of nowhere booking. And now for the more realistic side. More realistic booking. We would have the same video package to set up for Ambrose's debut. But at SummerSlam, Santino would issue a non-title open challenge. And basically, the actual challenge itself would happen at the 1000th Raw, or at one of the Raws following the 1000th. And Ambrose would debut, beat Santino, win a title opportunity. So now we have Ambrose versus Santino at Night of Champion. Ambrose would win, obviously, and defend it cleanly at Hell in a Cell. He would participate in a 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series match at SummerSlam. Just all this different stuff that makes him look better, but obviously not kind of pushing him to the moon like the Cena stuff was earlier. At TLC, I would have him win a fatal 4-way United States title match against 3 guys that maybe had beat him in the weeks leading up to TLC in non-title matches, a la what Dolph Ziggler did at Survivor Series this past year, or what he should have done. I don't think he actually did it. So he retains the title against those guys. At the Royal Rumble, Ambrose gets eliminated by Christian. At the Elimination Chamber, and leading up to the Elimination Chamber, Ambrose goes after Christian. He has this big grudge. And it's Ambrose versus Christian, United States versus Intercontinental title, in a title unification match. But it would end in a no contest. Both men would be unable to stand up by the count of 10. It wouldn't have to be that. It could be a double countout, double no contest, double disqualification, double pin, regardless. As long as neither one of them actually wins, it would all set up for a US versus IC Championship unification match at WrestleMania. And believe it or not, I would have Christian win this match. It would be a show stealer. These guys would look great. They would have to have at least 15 minutes, if not 20. But I would have Christian win. But then at Extreme Rules, Ambrose makes Christian tap out for the unified United States Intercontinental Championship. And the reason I'm doing this is kind of like why the WWE had the Big Show Cody Rhodes fiasco in WrestleMania and at Extreme Rules. At WrestleMania, the babyface goes over and gets their big moment, and that builds that babyface up. That gets them a lot more crowd reaction, more people emotionally invest. And then at the next pay-per-view, the heel comes along and takes it away from them. And like I said, Ambrose would have Christian tap out. I know Christian would be willing to do this job. And I think that this would make Ambrose look like $1 million. At Over the Limit, Ambrose would retain against Christian, and afterwards, basically somebody new would step up and challenge Ambrose for the unified mid-card title. They would enter a new feud. I don't know exactly who it would be. I don't really have anyone in mind. Although, to be completely honest, I would not be bothered at all if it was a Daniel Bryan in the mid-card, because, as you know, he's probably going to end up going against Christian at SummerSlam. Like I said, this is kind of me being more realistic and just looking at it from an objective, not going to put a rocket under this guy's butt, just going to treat him like the star that I think the WWE even sees him as. So yes, I would do that, and this would really either one. I personally like the first one more just because it kind of delves more into the John Cena character and makes people kind of get behind him and be like, oh man, we need Cena to get out of this, and then Ambrose being this ultimate corrupter, almost like what the Joker was in the original Dark Knight. Yeah, I think it would be great, but like I said, the second one would work too. I like the idea of Dean Ambrose winning the U.S. title from Santino to start things out, though, just because I am really convinced that that's why WWE hasn't had him defend his title, because they're going to have him defend it against Ambrose and lose it. So, you finally got it. I'm finally done with this Superstar Spotlight. The next one, I'm not going to promise when it's going to be, but I haven't decided yet on whether it will be on Corey Graves or Cassius Ohno. I'll let you guys decide, actually, so go ahead and comment, leave a comment, tell me which one you want me to do, Corey Graves or Cassius Ohno, and I will probably be uploading a few more video game videos this week on my video game channel, Eon Maplecraft. I'll leave a link to that in the description, and again, moving my Ambrose promo compilation over to Eon Tribute. So I have 3 channels now, plus you could technically count the Horseman channel, because really, since Alex and Preston left, it's just me and John, and I'm thinking about maybe putting some old episodes of Twitwow up on that channel. I'll let you guys decide that again. Go ahead and leave comments, but until then, I'm Ian Izzle, signing out.